Uber missteps and misfortunes. Let's talk about it. Welcome everyone. As the year draws to a close, there are a few interesting news stories that I'd like to share with you, and maybe even something we can learn a little bit from. You tell me. The first one comes from an area that I'm very familiar with, Orlando, Florida. A reward of up to $1,000 is being offered for information on a man who carjacked an Uber driver at gunpoint near the Mall of Millennia earlier this month. Now, this took place way back on December 11th. Why it's just making the news now always confuses me. I have to believe that it made the local news, and for some reason, it's just hitting the wires. The report stated that the Uber driver, 22-year-old Gabriel Jonathan, was waiting at an apartment complex. Now, this is the first thing that throws up my radar, an apartment complex. So, was this, again, a setup? Do the people who are doing the carjacking just know? Are they on the lookout for Uber drivers? How is this whole thing set up? I'm not suggesting that the rider was an accomplice in this, but I just think it's interesting how these things occur. To pick up a customer when he heard a tapping noise on the driver's side window of his car, Jonathan looked over to see a man wearing a black ski mask and black clothing pointing a gun at him. Man, I've never faced down the barrel of a gun, but that has to be a frightening experience. The suspect told Jonathan to log off iCloud on his iPhone 8, take his belongings out of his pockets, and place them on the passenger seat and exit the vehicle, according to the report. In addition to the iPhone, the report states that Jonathan's black wallet and black iPad were taken by the suspect. The report states that while Jonathan was being ordered at gunpoint, the Uber customer came out of her home. The carjacking suspect told her to go back inside. Now, do you do anything at this point? Do you tell the passenger, call 911? Or is that going to set the person off and risk being shot? What do you think? I have my opinions. I'll let you know in just a second. When Jonathan exited the vehicle, the suspect took the car and drove south on Kingsgate Drive towards Oak Ridge Road, according to the report. The victim ran in the opposite direction, not a bad idea, of the suspect and looked for someone to help him call 911. The report states deputies were unable to locate the iPhone because it was not logged into iCloud. Now that's really interesting. I thought that they could triangulate those phones, whether they were logged into iCloud or not. I thought the fact that a phone is on should be able to make it locatable. I also wonder if you wouldn't be able to minimize your Uber driver app, mute the phone, minimize the app, but keep it running. And if you wouldn't be able to locate your phone that way. Of course, this is all hindsight. Who thinks about that kind of stuff when they're facing a gun pointed at them? I probably wouldn't. The Crime Line Bulletin states anyone who knows the location of the suspect or information on the crime could receive a reward of up to $1,000. Anyone with information is encouraged to call Crime Line at 1-800-423-TIPS, T-I-P-S. 1-800-423-TIPS. Now, here is an artist's rendering of the suspect as well as a description. He's described as a black male, 5 feet 8 inches tall, weighs around 160 pounds, 28 to 30 years old, has a thin face and facial hair. And the vehicle is a 2016 four-door Chrysler 200, license plate JPKL93. Now, what makes me suspect, if he had a ski mask on, how do you know all these other things about him? How did they get the full face rendering? How do they know he had facial hair? Did he pull the mask off? It seems like kind of a dumb thing to do if you're jacking a car. I don't know. Those are just the things I think about when I read news stories. This is scary. This is really, really scary. Now, I'm familiar with the Orlando area. I'm even familiar with the Millennia area, but I am not really familiar with those streets that they indicated. So I don't know if it's a sketchy area or not. However, these are the types of things that we have to be careful of as drivers. Now, I know that Uber doesn't like us profiling, and the reason that they don't like us to have destinations is they don't want us to cherry pick. But my goodness, when cars are being carjacked, and maybe, I'm just saying maybe, this might be off topic of this exact incident, but I'm talking more in general terms. Maybe if we know more information, we can stay away from areas that are higher risk, areas that statistically have higher crime rates, and keep ourselves safer. Just a thought. What do you think? Leave your comments down below. Now, this next story comes from Phoenix, and the dateline says 3TV/CBS 5 in Phoenix. People ask me, Mark, link down below, link the story. There's a reason I don't link the story. I always credit the story, so you know where I'm getting my information from. However, there's a reason I don't link the story. Number one is just kind of a personal thing. Sometimes my stories are a conglomerate of 3 or 4 different sources. So if you go to the story, you'd say, well, where do you get that information? I'm not reading it, because I pull it from different sources. But another reason, and this is just the way that YouTube operates, if we want to get views on my channel, if I want people to find me, I have to play the YouTube game. And one of the things that YouTube wants, one of the things our algorithm looks for, is do people that come and watch my channel stay on YouTube? And if I have a link that takes them away, they're going to start to recognize that. And they're going to say, oh, people that go to Uber hints end up leaving YouTube as soon as they're done. And if I do that, my channel starts to decline. It's harder for it to be found. It doesn't show up in feeds. I want people to find me. So one of the reasons that I don't put the links in is I want people to stay here at YouTube. Now, it's a decision I consciously make, but it's not my choice. It's YouTube's choice. And in a way, that's the way that they control creators. So this story comes to us from Phoenix. A 71-year-old woman is in the hospital after she was struck by an Uber driver twice. She was struck by this guy twice. At Sky Harbor Wednesday night, they're talking about the airport. According to Sergeant Vincent Lewis, the driver was dropping off a passenger at the south curb of Terminal 4, failed to put his car in park. As he was getting out of the car, he struck the woman. Okay, if that's not tragic enough, here's what happened next. Reportedly, the Uber driver got back into the car, backed up, hit the car behind him, went forward, and hit the woman a second time. She was taken to the hospital in critical condition and is expected to survive. Lewis said the driver remained on the scene and showed no signs of impairment. Now, there was a shuttle bus driver that witnessed this whole thing. So we're going to look at it now from his perspective. Nate Roberts, this is the shuttle driver, witnessed the Uber driver smash into one of his passengers. So this woman and her husband were on his shuttle. Roberts said he had just brought the 71-year-old victim and her husband to the south side of Terminal 4. He was helping them with the luggage when she started walking to the curb. So he was getting the luggage out of the shuttle, and the woman starts walking to the curb. That's when he saw the Uber driver zoom up and run the woman down. This sounds like quite a different story than he got out of the car and his car wasn't in park and it inched forward and hit her. He zoomed up and ran her down. I just love this when you get conflicting versions of stories. When she first got hit, she was up on the hood, and I went, oh my God, and everyone turned around to look. A car inching forward may or may not toss an old lady up on a hood, but I kind of suspect it's more likely that that vehicle was going at some rate of speed. I'm just making some assumptions here based on witness accounts. Phoenix police reported that the Uber driver had accidentally got out of his vehicle without putting the car in park, and that's what caused the initial accident. But Roberts, the shuttle driver, says he isn't convinced, considering the force of the impact, okay, here's what I was just saying, caused the woman to be carried a long way before the vehicle came to a stop. Well, you got to remember though, the second time he hit her, he was driving. So he backed up. You know, this guy's probably in panic mode. I'm not making excuses for him. I mean, this is absolutely out of line. But the guys, I'm just assuming, you know, what sounds like maybe happened. I always like to put myself in the other guy's shoes. So maybe he got out of his car. The car started inching forward. Oh my God, I didn't put my car in park. Hit the woman. He gets in the car, panics, throws it in reverse, hits the car behind him. That throws him into additional panic, puts it in drive, moves forward, hits the woman again. In my mind, that is a likely scenario if she was hit twice, right? If you're parked and you just got out of your car, let your feet off the brake, the car is going to roll slowly. This is the shuttle driver's assumption. He was going way too fast. The driver did say he hit the gas instead of the brake. I suspect that was the second time because they said he wasn't in the car the first time. And maybe that happened and he jumped in and just floored it. But when she was initially hit, that was way too fast. So I don't know. I don't know. Roberts also can't understand why the Uber driver backed up after the first collision, hit the other car, moved forward, and struck the woman again. I suspect that is pure panic. How often do you hit somebody? For most people, it doesn't happen. It's one of those once in a lifetime panic situations. Oh my goodness, I just hit somebody. And you just want to get away from that person as quickly as possible, make sure they're okay. Now you hit something else behind you. And I think your mind is probably not even cognizant of what it's doing at that point, right? So now he's trying to get away from what he hit behind him, goes forward, hits the poor lady again. So what can we take away from these two stories? Well, I think first of all, we have to make sure that we are getting plenty of rest, that we're not driving when we're fatigued. I don't know if they're fatigued or not. It said it didn't seem like he was impaired. But I'm just saying, if we don't want to make these mistakes, don't drive when we're fatigued. Don't be in too much of a hurry to get out. Now, I know what a lot of people are going to say. They're going to say, well, if he wasn't getting out of his vehicle, if he wasn't trying to help someone with their luggage, this never would have happened. I know people are going to say that. And, it's hard to argue with. But I don't think it's a matter of necessarily getting out of the car. It's having an awareness. Did we put the car in park? And maybe even get in the habit of setting the parking brake. Right? I'm kind of a belt and suspenders type of guy in those situations. It is just a dangerous thing to get out of the car when it's running. Turn the car off. Then get out of your car. And these things are going to be less likely to occur. So, my assessment, don't get out of the car when it's running. Make sure it's in park and set your parking brake. You do those things, you're not going to have these types of incidents. Again, I understand, hindsight is 20/20, but in a public area, getting out of your car while it's running, not a great idea. What about the first driver? Someone taps on your car and they point a gun at you? I don't know. My inclination is to gun it, to floor it, but I know that goes against everything that police say you should do. You can get a new car, you can get a new iPhone, you can get a new iPad. You can't get another you. So maybe he did exactly what he should have done. Complied and be safe. All right. Now, I have strong feelings on this one because in my hometown of Milwaukee, carjackings are rampant. Mostly because police do not pursue. And I think that is a green light to car theft. And the more emboldened these carjackers become, because they know the police aren't going to give chase, the more likely people are to be carjacked, the more likely people are to resist and get hurt. When people feel law enforcement isn't going to do anything, they're more inclined to take things into their own hands. And I don't want to live in a society of vigilantes. I would rather have police that give pursuit. My personal opinion. What do you think? What's your opinion on that? I know the other argument is, well, they're increasing the risk of, other people getting hurt in a high-speed pursuit. There's some validity to that side as well. I'd like to hear what you say. And let's not just limit it to these two stories. What are other things that you think we, as drivers, can do to keep ourselves safe and keep our passengers safe and people around us safe? I think it would be a good way to bring this year out to talk about some more positive things, because it's one thing to read these stories and think, man, these are depressing stories. I think they're hardly worth reporting on if we don't take something positive away. So that's what I would really like the comments to be about today, is what can we do in these situations? What can we do to keep ourselves safe? I gave you my opinions. Now let's hear yours. And don't forget those stories. Please don't leave the stories, the contest stories here. Go back to yesterday's contest video and leave the stories there. And please, I want the stories to be rideshare related. Some of you have left some interesting stories, both in the comment area and sent to me directly, uberhints@gmail.com. But some of them are not really rideshare related. This is a rideshare channel, so I'd like to keep those rideshare related. No, by the way, Mark on the Move. What do you think of that? Maybe that could be the name of my new channel. There's a bunch of Mark on the Moves, and just about every channel you can think of has 7 of them already, which I don't understand. I don't get how YouTube can have a lot of channels all with the same names, but a lot of those only have 2 or 3 subscribers and no posted videos, so I don't know. I'm still looking at a name. I want to move away from having Uber in my title. Maybe that will be something I do to be fresh and new for 2019. Thanks, everyone. As always, I love it when you comment. I encourage you to share and like the videos. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. I'm Mark with Uber Hints.